is the somber teen romance between a hopeless romantic and a woman struggling to deal with her past. Now, what I found interesting about this film is that it has a very somber tone to it. Like it feels very uh like it feels very sad, but at the same time it also feels very gentle and open. Like the main character Henry Page, played by Austin Abrams. He's basically he wants to be a writer, but he feels like he doesn't have enough experience to write about, or like he hasn't. Mainly, he feels that if he hasn't fallen in love, then he won't be able to find anything to write about. And I mean, like of course, the old person in me is saying, you're just a teenager, you haven't gotten that much out into the world. Of course, you don't have much to write about, especially since it looks like he lives in a fairly upper middle class area. So but he has dreams of writing, and he believes that he can make those dreams happen once he's given the opportunity to be the editor of his school's newspaper. There's one catch, though. He has to be a co-editor with Grace Town, played by Lily Reinhardt. And Lily has a bad leg, and there's a story behind that bad leg that actually led to the death of another student, and she feels really bad about that, and she can't quite get over that. So she's very quiet. She's dismissive. When she's offered the opportunity to work as a co-editor, she immediately rejects it. So it's up to Henry to convince her to be an editor so that he can both be a writer and maybe find out some more about Grace. And of course, they will eventually hit it off eventually. But I like how this film proceeds. It proceeds on very sensitive and tender ground here. Like Henry's very cautious about trying to get into the good graces of Grace. I just realized I made that bad joke. Forgive me. And I like how the film kind of proceeds at I mean, it's only like 93 minutes, but it actually proceeds at a fairly slow and understanding pace. Even like the school setting feels very understanding. Like either like either high school has changed a lot since I've been there, or this is just like the introvert's ideal of what school would be like. Because I kind of like if if high school was like this, where characters can be fairly honest. Like one of the things that Henry wants to pitch for the paper is he wants to have a full, a whole theme about being honest about what it's like to be being a teenager, because like the whole title of the film Chemical Hearts refers to the how teenagers' brains are evolving, and trying to figure out what to do with yourself as a teenager and be honest with yourself. And of course, you have that one awkward moment where he says, like, well, let's share. Anyone have any secrets they want to share? And of course, nobody shares. So Henry's like, okay, well, I'll talk about my secrets and something I feel. And one of the things that he talks about nostalgically is, of all things, a porno magazine. Now you think this would be like an easy joke and everyone would like snicker at it, but the way he talks about it comes with such like sincerity and kind of like longing for like days when you were younger, which is strange to kind of hear coming out of a teenager, but it's kind of effective. I think I think it kind of works here. Another aspect I found was interesting. It's kind of more of a side story. In fact, it's an arc. It's kind of like a mini arc because it resolves itself about halfway through the film. But there are two characters we follow, two female students, and they start having a relationship together. But one of them isn't sure if it's the kind of relationship they want to be in. Like she thinks that she's initially into boys, but that she might be into girls. And it's basically approaching like the topic of bisexuality, and it kind of approaches it in a very understanding way. Like there's a moment where she's confronting the other woman, when she's not sure of herself, and basically saying, "Look, I don't know what I am, but I know who I want to be with, and I know what makes me feel good." And so there's a very like warm comfort, I think, to that kind of works well about being true to yourself, and also being very open. Like Grace is clearly like shut herself off from the rest of the world, because she feels like that like this is kind of like her penance for what's happened to her, and there are moments where like where she genuinely connects with Henry. And then there are other moments like at one point there's a song that just triggers her. That just immediately she's like, I can't do this, and she just breaks down in a way that seems relatable. Like you could understand that kind of happening here. And it's not like they instantly set up that song and what will trigger her, and they immediately show the full reaction. Like they build up to it. Like they the music will drop and we focus in on her face. It's like, no, it happens and we're in the moment with her. And I feel like it's pretty effective. There are a lot of very sweet and quiet moments between Henry and Grace. Some of the best moments are when they meet at a secret spot where they find a little pool of fishes, and they talk about, Grace talks about, her therapy of trying to walk through a pool, and they kind of become more open when they talk to each other through it, because it's their own little secret hideaway. And there's this very understanding nature to it too, like especially Henry's parents. They're like very open. They're like, hey, if you wanna go out or anything, we're totally understanding. You can invite your girlfriend over. Whatever you want to do, we're understanding. We're a nice, happy couple. And that kind of infuriates Henry. It's like, yeah, everything's fine for you guys, but I'm a teenager struggling with love. I don't know how to make any of this work. There are a few moments where I feel like it's almost like too passive, like almost kind of like it's channeling like like a Linklater slacker energy, but then kind of like veers off a little bit here and there. But I like the way that this film is framed. There's a lot of cool shots here. The concept of your brain still evolving is interesting, even though I don't think they only bring it up like here and there, so it's kind of like just almost kind of like a mascot of a theme in the background. And some of the dialogue comes out just a tad pretentious. Like you can tell that Henry really wants to be a writer, because he can really slam down his feelings in a very poetic manner that I don't know, the cynic in me is kind of doubting that a teenager would be that elegant with language. But like I said, maybe there are some teenagers who are like that. Maybe there is a high school this open, and a world this understanding. Because it feels like these characters don't really have to deal with much of any bullying, and just kind of keep to themselves and are quiet and just kind of enjoy each other's company more or less. So it's so possible with wish fulfillment, but damn, what a good wish, to be able to be open and discuss what it's like being a teenager. So yeah, bits and pieces of this film work really well. I mean, it goes through a few of the motions, the hills and valleys of the teen the teen romance formula here and there, like the big dance. They even have like the a bit of a cliche within romantic dramas where the character has to rush to a character has to rush to the other because they have to confess their feelings right away. So there's a scene where Henry will just blaze through a crowd, just like, out of my way, I need to get to Grace, because we get it. And they, thankfully though, that scene where they do finally meet, it actually works rather well here. So yeah, this film kind of like it fluctuates. It has me here and there. Sometimes I think it gets almost a little too cerebral, where it almost seems like it like borders on fantastical, where I can't quite buy it. But every now and then there was a very simple and quiet moment that would draw me back into the film, and it made the romance mostly work for me. So for Chemical Hearts, 3 out of 5 stars.